welcome to It's Not About the Hair online series. My name is Valerie Fuentes. I am your host, and today I am with Joy Blenman. She is joining us from Toronto, Canada, and I'm so thrilled to have Joy here today because Joy has actually been living with hair loss her entire life. And I would love to hear about your story and your perspective as someone who has only lived with hair loss for half of her life. I imagine that growing up with hair loss must have been very different for you. So I would love to hear your story, Joy. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, I've had this since I was a child, so it's so special to be a part of something like this that can help educate other children, other parents of children with alopecia, and even share my insights as an adult as well, because this is definitely a kind of resource that I wish I had when I was younger. It definitely was really hard because there wasn't a lot of knowledge about the topic, like beyond speaking to your family doctor. There weren't a lot of supports out there. There wasn't really social media yet, so it also wasn't like you could turn to Instagram and explore and do your own research and find others with it. Like, unfortunately for me and my parents, it was really limited to just like my lived experiences and a lot of like trial and error in terms of like learning how to really adapt to living with hair loss. So yeah, definitely events like yours are huge.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
that's definitely the reason why I do it, right? Because I
yeah,
started
yeah.
losing my hair when I was 18, and back in the
Wow.
day, there was nothing,
Yeah,
nothing,
yeah.
or nothing that I knew about, right? And I share this with everyone that I feel that when we get a diagnosis,
Hmm.
hopefully it's starting to change now, but it's you almost get okay, you have alopecia, have a good day, right? Like you're left to your
Mm,
own devices, your own research, your own Google research too, right? Because there's also the world that opens after you're diagnosed, right? Because we start doing our own research and we run into all these treatments and all the things that we never heard before. We don't know if they work or we don't work. And we have so much hope and there's so many options. It's overwhelming. So having resources and getting to know people that have actually gone through it and learn from people that are going through the same thing is so powerful, and it's my
so
motivation
powerful.
to do all of this. Yes. So going back to your family history, correct? So do you have any siblings, or what was it like to grow up as a child with hair loss?
Yeah, so I have one younger brother. He's about 8 years younger than me. His name's Josiah. And it's funny, both him and I were born with huge afros, like super, super curly hair. He doesn't have alopecia, but my hair actually started to fall out, my mom says, when I was about 13 months old. So at first it was alopecia areata, so she saw little like dime patches, just little patches, and it was super obvious because I had so much hair from birth, so she was like really alarmed. And then she says within about a week and a half, almost completely, the hair had completely fallen out. And so then it emerged to being more of like totalis. So like completely, almost just like as I am today. Um, and so that was like really scary. So they brought me to Sick Kids, which is the most prominent like children's hospital in Toronto, and they ran a bunch of tests, and thankfully they didn't see any major health flags, but they did kind of just give the diagnosis that actually it really is just this rare autoimmune disease called alopecia. And to your point, it kind of was like, okay, like this is what it is, like off you go, right? And so it it was like really hard because they didn't have anyone else actually in my family who had it or even had any friends who had it. So it was definitely really tough for my parents because they didn't really have like a roadmap there. Yeah.
So did your parents guide you towards wearing hair, or how did you grow up? Were you wearing hair or not wearing hair? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so it's funny, like back then, so I grew up in the 90s and like they did have wigs. They had some kids' wigs, but they aren't like at the technology that they have now and they're not as realistic. And so I had little headband wigs and I did kind of like them at first, But then like I just started to find them like really itchy and just annoying. And my mom says once we went to like a barbecue or a garden party, and she said I just like took the wig off and threw it on the ground. I guess when I was super young, I don't remember. And I guess yeah, I wasn't feeling it. I just thought of it just like a hat, and I didn't want to wear it anymore. And so they were like, okay, let's not like force her to wear it. And I think my mom just said like, okay, I realized this was kind of me feeling like like you had to wear hair, but it I didn't want to have to like force you to wear it if you obviously didn't feel comfortable with wearing it that day. And so it was interesting. Like there was definitely days where like I remember like feeling really kind of quite sad that I didn't have hair, and so like really wanting to like be able to like play with hair and like make braids or like style hair. And so like on days like that I would put on the wig, but it was almost kind of like playing dress up. Like for whatever reason I just didn't really care to wear it every day, and so I didn't when I was quite young. And then even going to school, at first I didn't really wear it. Like I would wear like little accessories to still make me feel like really feminine and girly. So I'd tie like hair bands, almost like ribbons, like around my head, almost kind of like a ribbon crown, and do stuff like that. And I remember like really loving that. And that definitely, I think, was a great way for me to accessorize and like still feel really like feminine and fun. But I just found the wigs to be really itchy and constraining. And I think one advantage I have is that because I grew up without having hair, I didn't have such a strong desire for the wigs, if that
Mm,
makes sense, because it just
yeah.
felt like a weird, unnatural accessory. That being said, though, because I chose not to wear hair when I did go to like public school, it definitely was hard because none of the other little girls like had short hair or even no hair. And that I think once I kind of left my bubble, so to speak, and started like meeting other people, then I would say I started feeling a little bit more sad about my hair, if that makes sense. Just being
Mhm.
exposed to other people and realizing I wasn't like the others. And that was really hard. And part of it was me just observing things, but also part of it is unfortunately kids can be quite mean. Like if
Mhm.
they see people that look different, or if they see people who, yeah, are just outliers or who don't look like people they see on TV, or they
Yeah.
haven't, or they don't have the education, then yeah, they can be quite mean. And so then I will say, like, when I was like in my earlier years, like I did experience a little bit of bullying, and like that was definitely hard, and kind of made me think about wearing hair a little bit more during that period. But um, one thing that really helped was that my mom came in one day and like just did like a little presentation, not so much about me, but about alopecia in general, just to say,
Mhm.
hey, like this is not something that you can catch. It's not contagious.
Right.
It doesn't make you literally sick. Like it doesn't mean she has a cold. It doesn't mean she's going to give you a cold. And also, there's all types of beauty. And I think that was really great because I think there was just like a lot of myths and a lot of
Mhm.
miseducation. And on top of that, people just didn't really know what alopecia was.
Right.
And so that really helped. That really helped a lot, and helped facilitate conversations with like other friends, like to talk to me about it after. And it's funny, I have an old classmate on Instagram. Like I hadn't talked to her in like years, but she responded to my story the other day, and she's like, "It's so funny. I remember your mom actually coming in and doing that presentation, and like that was so cool. And like I hope she's well. And like that really was eye opening. So like it's so great that you're doing this stuff now. And like it's so crazy. I haven't seen her since I left that school, and I left that school in like grade 3. So this is like years ago, but." It's great to see that like definitely when you educate people in a way that's like really easy to understand, it really like stays with them like for years. Because I'm 29 now, and this presentation happened like in grade 2 or grade 3. So yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think that the part of the process also is like learning who do we share with and what do we
yeah,
share, right? Because
yeah,
again, part of it is the lack of education and
Yeah.
people not knowing what it is, right? So
Yeah.
I tell everyone that we don't have to share with everyone because it can
Yep.
also be exhausting, right? Having to share your
Truly.
story to
Yeah.
everybody that
Yeah.
gives you a compliment on the hair,
Yeah.
and feeling that you have to share that it's a wig, right? Because
Yeah.
I am now used to saying thank you when I get a compliment on my hair, and like,
Yeah.
oh, Val, your hair looks great, awesome, thank you. But before, I will feel that I have to right away say, oh, thanks, it's a wig. I have alopecia. And
Mm.
sometimes there people are not ready to receive
To
that,
have that. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or
Yep.
to talk about it because they can be like, oh my God, did I mess up? Right? Some people think that they messed up by giving us a compliment. And we just, we just say thank you, or we don't want to have the conversation right there. And it has happened to me that I'm cool about it and I said, oh, thanks, it's a wig. But then people will get thrown off, and I just want to like change the subject and move on. But how do you handle that awkward moment? So
Yeah.
yeah, so are you at a place where you are choosy, or like I call it choosy, but like do you like you're special about who you share with, or do you share with everybody? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it is important to be choosy because it definitely is emotionally exhausting. I like I mentioned, like it definitely I experienced bullying about it when I was younger, so sometimes just talking about it can just open up like those wounds, you know what I mean? And on top of that, I am in a much better place with my hair still, but regardless, if you've ever gone through something traumatic or if you've ever experienced something health related, it's always like really hard to talk about it. And so often I'll just say, "Oh, thank you so much," and just keep it moving, like you will do. Or even a funny thing that's happened is that sometimes I do go out in public, just like this, and people will say, "Oh my goodness, like you have such a great haircut," and I'm like, "Oh, thank
You
you.
look gorgeous.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
thank you." But it's like even then, I just kind of leave it at that because sometimes people might, to your point, feel a bit awkward. But on top of that, um, there's not always the education there as well. So if I have time, I will take the time to educate people. But generally now, I just keep it moving. That being said, something that's new is that like I started a new job in November, and I hadn't really done this before, but it was interesting. They asked us all to write our blueprints. So, like, are you a morning person? What do you like to do outside of work? Things like that. And there's a section where it's like, is there anything else that that we should know about you? And I just said, oh, I have a rare autoimmune disease called alopecia, and then just gave them a link to my blog post about it, and just left it at that. And that's the first time I've like so openly just flagged that at work, you know what I mean? And it was great because there actually was opportunity to do that because they already were questions there. But I thought that's great because if people want to learn more, then they can go ahead and learn more and then they can talk to me more about it afterwards. But that way there isn't like this weird like elephant in the room. It's like, oh, Joy always has different hair, or oh, I wonder like what this is about, or you know what I mean? Just so that it's out in the open. And it's been great because some people have talked to me a bit about it more, but at least they have that like baseline to know like a bit more about the disease before asking questions, and they're a lot more informed, and also just it's out in the open, and I think that's kind of freeing, so it doesn't feel like it's like this like awkward secret. Yeah.
Awesome. And what is your day to day now as far as wearing hair? Are you not wearing hair? Do you wear hair in a daily?
Yeah, like I would say like a few years ago I was like wearing it on the daily, but just partially with COVID, but also just I think I'm in a better place. I would say I actually weirdly more so don't wear hair, and then I'll wear wigs like if it's like a special occasion, or if
Mm,
I want it, like for example right now it's really cold in Canada,
yeah,
and so just practically it's better to go out
it
with a
feels
wig.
good.
It feels good. Like, yeah, it's too cold otherwise. But I will say now I kind of just look like this. And yeah, it's taken a while to get there, but I feel just as comfortable now. So yeah.
So, Joy, how did you deal with the emotional impact of having hair loss? Because
Hmm.
I know, growing up, like, yeah, there are wigs and you have your family for support, but going through the bullying, because I know that that is a very traumatic experience. How did you deal with that emotional piece?
Yeah, honestly, it was really hard. I'm glad like I had like my family is really supportive, but to your point, it's hard to fully articulate the pain of going through hair loss unless you'd like been through it yourself. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I would almost feel guilty, like, okay, at least otherwise my health is relatively good. You know what I mean? But it's still a loss is a loss, and like even though it's hair, it still has an impact on you because a lot of your self-worth, at least, or a lot of like what society places on women is like their self-worth is very much like on how beautiful you are, you know what I mean? And so it definitely was a bit of a mind game because I felt like, am I that beautiful without hair? And especially because a lot of the images that I would see on social media or see on TV or see out there in general, they just really saw like exemplars of like what beauty looked like was having like that super beautiful, really luscious, like really full hair. And so that definitely was really hard. I wouldn't say there was like one thing that like started to make me feel better. It definitely has been a journey, but I think a big thing has been just moving to a place of like defining my self-worth not so much on factors that are so external, and rather moving more to a place of defining myself based on like internal factors. So like for example, I know that like I'm a really good writer, or I know that I'm very compassionate. I know that a lot of people say that I'm funny. Like it's like things like that, like, and starting to um, surround myself with people who affirmed those things, whether that's romantic relationships, whether that's friendships, whether that's community, with like my church or whatever, just finding those groups of people who really would celebrate me for who I was on the inside really made me feel a lot more confident. And then yeah, I would just say like also just finding other people who similarly like had gone through similar things, like with alopecia, I think was also another game changer. Just to learn from them was a huge thing. Unfortunately, I didn't meet a lot of other people who had alopecia until like much later in life, but that's definitely been a huge thing that's really helped me feel a lot more confident just knowing other people are out there, and they look amazing too with and without hair, and just hearing their strength and hearing their stories has been like really inspiring as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And so I am originally from Colombia, so Latina, Hispanic, right here.
Hmm.
And so I can totally relate to what you're saying because I grew up thinking that the only way to be feminine or the only way to feel like a woman was to have long, luscious, beautiful hair, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
femininity and being a woman looks like. Well, not only for a Latina, but for culturally, basically, right? So, I was going to ask you about that because I feel and I know that it's all learned behavior, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody,
Hmm.
uh, it is not set in stone that only women only with long hair are feminine. And I
Yeah.
actually asked this to somebody a couple of days ago, and I said, "What do you do to feel feminine?" And she said, "I don't do anything. I am feminine." So,
Wow. Wow.
right? And so for you, as someone who hasn't had her hair her whole life, how did you started being feminine? Because I do think that we become that, right? Like it's who we're
Mm,
being, it's not what we're doing. So I'm sure
mm.
there was a struggle right there,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
are feminine. Like I look at you and I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
she's gorgeous.
Oh,
So
thank you.
how do you feel feminine?
Yeah, that's such a good question. um I would say I exploring beauty more. Like I didn't always really know how to do makeup. And I wouldn't say it's just the makeup, that's just one part of it, but I would say that was one important facet, just like learning how to do my lashes, like learning how to do blush and just to do natural light makeup. I don't do anything crazy, but just taking that time to put on lipstick, taking that time to do my lashes, which was something that I unfortunately had lost due to alopecia. Just doing that kind of stuff in turn ended up becoming really therapeutic. It was time just for me to focus on me. And that was huge. But on top of that, it boosted my confidence because like when you look good, you feel good and then you act with more confidence, and that made me feel a lot more confident at work and in other situations and social situations. And um, it's funny because I think like in the before times before COVID, like a huge bonding time used to be sometimes with my friends, just like getting ready to go out, like spending time together, like doing our makeup before we go out, doing hair before you go out, like having a drink together before you go out, like having that bonding time together before you go out, like that kind of stuff. I think like that sisterhood also made me feel, sorry, a lot more feminine, and it was really, really huge for me. So I would say, first off, just rediscovering my own beauty through discovering beauty products, but also just taking the time to practice self care and skincare was huge for me. And then I would say, too, just leaning into my sisterhoods with my friends and with my cousins and learning from other strong women about their experiences and sharing stories and doing that kind of stuff really, I think, helped me tap into my femininity. And um, it's something that I'm really passionate about now too, because it really was so transformative for me. Like once I was able to kind of see myself in a new light, it really helped to boost my self-esteem in so many considerable ways, which was really, really healing, because for years I just didn't really feel like super feminine because I didn't have hair, and I didn't feel like if I was beautiful, because to your point, like the ideal, like often I think is just to have really long hair. Like I'm like Caribbean Canadian, and so especially for Caribbean people, like to have really long braids or to have really beautiful curls, like there's just like a lot of identity placed on having like good hair. And so it definitely was really tough growing up, just trying to reconcile the fact that like the ideal was one thing and I kind of looked like the antithesis of the ideal. But now I realize that beauty isn't just there's multiple ways to look at beauty. Like someone made this analogy, it's like icicles are really beautiful, rainbows are really beautiful, flowers are really beautiful, but they don't look like they look nothing alike. And so just realizing that like there's so much beauty in nature that looks nothing like that, and that's okay. Like my cousin has really, really long hair, I don't, but we're both beautiful, you know what I mean? So just learning to lean into just the multitude of like various forms of beauty is has been like really huge. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Joy. So at what point did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna share my story? And when did you open your Instagram account? I know you have other projects where you're now
Yeah.
openly sharing about this. So tell us a little bit more about that. When did you take that step?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually relatively recent. I had been wanting to do it for a while. As I was spending a lot more time just watching YouTube and learning more from other amazing YouTubers, both with and without hair, it was just a really empowering experience. And I was like, I would love to share what I've learned along the way with others too. But I just didn't really have the time until pandemic hit, like about a year ago, because I don't know, just life was just so on the go, 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 right? But then, like, once everything shut down, I just really had time to just like really sit with myself and just think, like, what are my goals? And I was like, my goal is to really like help other people, specifically other people who look like me, and help also educate others who don't look like me, just to know their beauty and know their self-worth. And so in May 2020, I decided to open up the Instagram account, Joyful Beauty, and then my friend was like, I feel like you should do YouTube too and just chat. And so that's when the idea fully came to life, and I started to do this work. And on the platform, I share beauty tips, I share self-care tips, we do tutorials, story times. It's just like a fun place for people to feel safe and just learn how to glow from the inside out, because I think that's really what is transformative for people, just learning how to really see their own inner beauty, and in turn that helps their outer beauty to really shine. Yeah.
I love that. Do you have
hmm
any fun plans that you can share with us for your 2021? Anything that you're creating that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so something I'm really excited about is to start doing interview series of my own. So in the fall, I did my first interview with Sidris Weber, who is this singer from The Voice who has alopecia.
Wow.
Yeah, and like it was really amazing. Like because she went on national TV, actually international TV, because I'm in Canada watching this, like just as she was with alopecia, and it didn't hold her back. And actually, if anything, it helped her a lot, because people are like, she was so uniquely identifiable, but people are like, who is this person? She has such courage, she has such confidence, she just shines, and just really latched onto it. So she was on John Legend's team, and then I think Kelly Clarkson's team as well. And it was great to hear her stories about her time on The Voice. And so the plan is to continue to do a series of interviews with other folks of alopecia, and then just continuing to share more amazing beauty tips as well. So that's kind of like what's on the horizon here now.
Thank you, Joy. Is there any like one like gold advice, piece of advice that you want to share with us for somebody that maybe just started their journey or that it's feeling lost? Because I know that we have days, right? Just because I'm here doing the interview with you and here you are sharing your story doesn't mean that we don't have bad days anymore. So
Well, yeah.
when you do have a bad day, what do you do?
Yeah, something that's really been helpful for me is doing breath work and just practicing yoga. Yeah, it's so huge because we spend so much time on our screens, and it's a great way to connect, but also can be very draining and very triggering. So literally taking a step back, doing that breath work has been huge. I also began doing this program for the 200-hour yoga teacher training. I started in fall. And so really, like, I will say, like, it's been a game changer for my anxiety. And so just taking time to bring myself to the mat, that's been a huge way for me to just really feel literally grounded, and just really just focus on my breath. And that's really helped me to calm my thoughts as well. I definitely think that it's an amazing tool for everyone, but particularly for people who've gone through trauma and who've experienced loss, which is in essence what happens when you have alopecia. It is a traumatic event. It is a huge loss, and I think it's really important for people to have outlet to really cope with that. And that's been a huge yoga has been a huge thing for me, and I hope it's helpful for other people. And I would say also just speaking to someone that you trust, like whether that's your partner, whether it's your best friend, whether it's your mom, just having someone that you can kind of vocalize those thoughts to, and who can just like remind you like how loved you are is just like really, really huge. Yeah.
Oh my God, absolutely. I totally agree with the breathwork piece. I never thought breathwork was going to have such an impact in my
hmm
life.
hmm
And when the first couple of sessions that I had, I was shocked to see because I just started bawling out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we don't even know how much like our
How much we
emotions are
hold.
just
Yeah.
stuck in our body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't tried, if you're somebody that hasn't tried breathwork, I highly recommend that. Just you start processing all the things that that we have just maybe just have shoved in, close the door, put the lock, and forgot about it. I thought, right, like I've done so much therapy and courses in my own training, right, and I thought I was over a lot of things, and breathwork has taught me that nope, there are a lot of things that still be processed, and it has been a huge help. So I agree with that 100%. In movement, I'm Unfortunately, yoga for me hasn't been as helpful, but I think it's just me not knowing what to do. But I do know that movement also helps you a lot with processing emotions. So, and there are a lot of people in the community that have used yoga as part of their practices, and I know it's powerful. So that is
Very
so cool.
powerful.
So when are you
Yeah.
going to start being? You're going to teach yoga? That's your
Yeah,
goal.
so, yeah, that's the goal. So it's a 200-hour program. I would say I'm about like 60% done, and then I'll do I'll do an exam, and then I'll teach in a practice class, and then I'll be done. So yeah, so hopefully once I'm up, I'll let you know, and hopefully you can join one time. Um, but also, like, to your point, like, movement is huge. Like, if yoga isn't your thing, I know for some people it's a bit slow. And also, to your point, when I first started doing yoga, I hated it because I had to kind of sit with my thoughts, and I didn't really like that. And so I know that can be challenging for some people. So, one, I would say, if it's hard the first time, that actually probably means it's for you because you probably have a lot of stuff to work out. But two, if you really, really don't like it, I think just movement, period, is huge,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's going for a walk, whether that's going for a swim, whatever it is, just moving your body, it can lead to breakthroughs when you give your mind a break, especially from the
Oh,
screen. So, yeah.
100%. So, Joy, where can we find you? We'd love to leave everyone where can they find you? I know you also have a different page outside of Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to keep in contact is if you go to joyfulbeauty.ca, you can join my mailing list, and that's the best way to stay connected. And you'll be notified when I have new YouTube videos, when I have new posts, and also just any special happenings that might be relevant for our community here. So that's a great way to stay in touch. On YouTube, my channel is Joyful Beauty. So if you type in Joyful Beauty and subscribe, that's a great way to be notified when I drop videos. And on Instagram, I'm at Joyful X Beauty. So three platforms, but if you want one central source of truth, the easiest way is just go to joyfulbeauty.ca. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you, Joy, so much for being here, sharing your story. Keep going at what you're doing. I think that, your message is so positive, and I'm so glad we got to connect. So,
Yeah.
everyone, thank you for being here. Make sure to follow Joy, and I'll see you on the next interview. Bye.